My view on agriculture is slightly different from his because I finance agriculture.
Because there are many farmers here, and somebody is not going to say, I'm going to kill all my pigs tomorrow morning.
So I told them, stop farming.
What do you mean?
I actually used the word that agriculture and farming is a dog with fleas. Run away from it. Let me go to the point.
No, wait, so before you go to the point.
What happens when two of the most influential men in the country have a spicy conversation concerning money? These two very successful men from different fields of life had a disagreement concerning a common topic, the business of agriculture. Now, this was in a roundtable talk, a panel of men of authority and good reputation discussing matters affecting men. It was also a talk between friends, but make no mistake in thinking that there was no disagreement. This is where you see how small differences in ideology cause huge separations in terms of strategy and perspective. How a successful career man views the world differently from how a successful business mogul does. What did one say that struck a nerve of the other, and whose outlook on life is more relevant today? What can we learn from all this? The resolution is not what you are expecting. Today we are talking about when a pastor checked a billionaire among thousands. On the 14th of May 2022 at Men Gather, Phaneroo's annual men's conference, a panel consisting of
Anthony Chituka,
Patrick Ayota,
Mr. Patrick Bitature,
and apostlegracelubega sat down for a financial themed question and answer session. This was arguably the session most men were interested in. In a country with high unemployment rates and high mortality rates for businesses, the attention was wholly on the stage for advice that was going to be shared. The audience, full of tens of thousands of men, was expecting a lot.
which was a big deal.
To make matters worse, this was just after the countrywide lockdown, and the breadwinners of the household were still recovering from that challenge and looking for all the advice they could get. A little while after having introduction and pleasantries, one of the most unlikely questions took an unpredictable turn that left both the panel and the audience stirred up. But before we get to what transpired, we need to talk about the men in the spotlight. Though Apostle Grace is now an entrepreneur, he was once a banker. And maybe more importantly, he is recognized as a pastor. Pastors, much like billionaires, have a life that is strange to the majority. There is this prevailing belief that pastor's wealth is tied solely to his congregation. But that would not, at least in Apostle's case, include his years spent in business, nor his white-collar job, which I have a video covering. However, it does address the fact that he cares for his congregation. As someone who started with nothing, he is a proponent for agriculture, even though it usually signifies humble beginnings. Patrick Bitature is
Not only a wonderful businessman, the man who has invested a lot in men and young people. He also has a YouTube. He's always giving out keys to help us propel to the next space of success and progress. He's also a very wonderful friend to Phaneroo Ministries.
He's an entrepreneur through and through. From the technical business language you hear in his conversations,
the banking circles is what they call an HNW, high net worth, and they are banked separately.
to his marital tips.
And this money you let live every day, a bit here, a bit there, a bit there. If you have someone who's frugal with money,
His worldviews were presented in his opening statement, his thoughts on how to develop the country. What stood out for me was his need for scalability and control for a successful business model.
almost 10 years. Fortunately, MTN had come, I could scale a business, I could do things differently. And I could now see $1 million.
This was all agreeable with the rest of the panel, but the separation of philosophy between him and Apostle was his reluctancy, and one could even argue opposition towards agriculture. And this took center stage when he was asked about the process of accumulating wealth.
Next issue is the younger generation, which I'm told comprises of more than 70-something% of our population in Uganda, almost below the age of 35. We have seen a trend, especially with the younger generation, that they want quick results. And because of the love of quick results, we have fallen into the traps of Ponzi schemes, sports betting, D9 sank a few. But we have had a generation that not only has failed to appreciate the process, they don't know the process. You see, how do I begin from point? What are those simple principles? I could get 2 or 3, I don't care, from everyone. But my point is, what are those simple principles?
Before we go on, I'd like you to support the channel as we breathe down to 1,000 members. Subscribe to the channel, and if you like the video, click the like button too. Okay, now back to the video.
I really sympathize with the young people today, especially when I talk of young people en masse, the majority out there. It's not your fault. That peasant life was not our design. It was designed by the colonial masters. So our society needs a complete mindset shift. Complete mindset shift if we're going to break that chain. Because it's something that is ingrained in you. You will do petty things. Now you see the population of the youth is the majority. They're about 75%, like he said. And yet the people in farming in Uganda are 68% of the population. So that's where the first problem is. How do you dislocate one from the other? Because they're all told, go into farming, go into farming.
His citing of the correlation between farming and poverty surely made some uncomfortable. But the scrutiny came from advising the men in the audience to run away from agriculture.
So I told them, stop farming. I actually used the word that agriculture and farming is a dog with fleas. Run away from it.
What do you mean?
If you involve yourself in farming and you're the one farming, whatever you do, there are too many variables that are outside your control.
Most of you know why those remarks would cause a reaction. The importance of agriculture cannot be understated. The chief employer in Uganda, the main export of Uganda is agricultural produce. It is easy to enter the industry in terms of expenses and expertise. So it is rightfully regarded as an important sector of the economy. But it's not without its shortcomings.
Largely, like I said, there are very many variables. Let's say I want to make a rope, a strong rope that I can hang over here and we can swing, all of us can swing on. You get smaller ropes, you tie them together in a bundle, you now to tie the ropes together, and then you have one strong rope. Now each of those small strings or smaller ropes is a variable in business. Now in farming, there are 53 ropes, 53 different ropes you have to get together. Tie them all together, then you can go like Madivani or like Meta. That's what it takes. Whereas in business, you need 4 or 5 to start with. In trading, buying the produce, there are fewer. So that's the first thing. When I try, I'm using an example of there are too many variables beyond the weather, beyond insects, beyond nature, beyond the floods, beyond the winds. There are so many things that come and disrupt you. And you can't control all these things.
Now we know for a fact that the majority of the congregation are in some capacity farmers. Such a statement unchecked could anger or more dangerously discourage them from the work, a habit that is usually labeled on the young men of this generation already. Thankfully, other members of the panel stepped in to bring some balance in the conversation.
Let me go to the point.
No, wait, so before you go to the point. Are you with me? Before you go to the point. Because I see your point of...
Now, this dialogue stayed with me for a number of years. I think both perspectives are right. I think Mr. Bitature speaks in terms of scale, and as was agreed upon, that needs research and planning.
Farming is a function of research. Why are some of the farmers in Kenya so successful? I went to Nakuru, I went to Naivasha. I looked at how they were doing it. They are doing it scientifically. They are doing research. They are doing it with a different model, and they are making money. Now, if we're not trained enough and don't do that deep research, and there's so much information today on YouTube about how to do farming, but get away from things like cotton, maize on a large scale. I did maize, I lost a lot of money. Do vegetables, do high-value products. Do something small and intensive farming. There you'll get a buy. Don't have 300, 400 cows.
I think the migration from the subsistence farming to commercial and scientific farming is agreeable, especially in a year when the weather patterns have noticeably changed. However, I do appreciate the dole that agriculture gives to the unemployed youth. It is agency, that is the ability to do something, to work out of your own volition. The ability to work despite the interview panel not choosing you. Because as a breadwinner, most men tie their self-value to their occupation and profession. In conclusion, one should enter agriculture with a view to elevate the prevailing situation and not follow the status quo. I also think that you need to choose your mentors wisely. Mr. Bitature, for all his achievements in life, struggled at farming.
I even chose to go and do some farming. I went to Gulu and I acquired 10 square miles. And I had a big farm. I cleared the farm. I put $2 million in that farm. I lost nearly everything. I brought in managers from America, South Africa, Mozambique, Russia to help me with their skills. I lost everything. I closed the farm.
There are many farmers performing at high levels of production who can help you prosper. For instance, Dr. Daniel Masaba of the Farm Up YouTube channel. Intentionality, or what others might term as purpose, is usually put on the back seat for flexibility, meaning that you do whatever is there rather than think in terms of your end goal and what you want to achieve. But the biggest takeaway I can give someone watching this video is that you ought to be able to think for yourself and for the world. It is not enough to learn to think what others think. You must learn to know how to think.
But it all began with the state of your mind, where you are. And when he mentioned the issue of mindset, I believe somebody one time thought for us and determined that we cannot go this far because if we do, then they're not going to be able to control us a certain way. And many of us will believe, statistically, that almost 2% of the world is thinking for the 98%. Somebody was writing a document recently, a research on the internet. Almost about 2% of the world are thinking for the rest of the 98%, and it could be even less. And you find that all of us are as a result of other men's what? Ideas, visions, creations, innovations. And especially in Africa, we refuse to think that nothing can come out of here.
So that when two men of reputation present you with compelling cases, you are able to absorb what is useful to your purpose and reject what is irrelevant. Speaking of significant things being overlooked, Phaneroo's 10th anniversary was more than what meets the eye. Check out this video to see what you missed.